26 years ago, the Tiananmen Square massacre in China led to a quiet revolution in one of our most conservative Baptist churches here in Northcote. The members of that church gave hospitality to a group of young refugee Chinese students, led them to faith in Jesus, and began to oversee the nurturing of a faith community. Culturally, politically, the differences were huge and could have been insurmountable obstacles. Today, they are embracing the journey not only into multicultural church, but into mission for the people of Northcote, renewed mission. One of the exceptional leaders is the church's current pastor, Jun Tan, who has helped the church to deepen and integrate its identity as a multicultural church and to develop its mission. Those words are so easily said, but June can tell us a lot about both the cost and the grace of that call. Would you welcome June? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Over the past many years, Andrew and his team has made some wonderful choice of speakers, which made the Nourish Day as one of the events we're all looking forward to. Having heard the last two stories, the wonderful and insightful stories, I'm sure most people in this room would agree with me that Andrew and his team has made an excellent decision again this year to invite me to be your last speaker. I say this because I'm a pastor who is so capable of making mistakes and being imperfect, and yet good enough to share with you about my own story of change. I call it an insider's story about the marriage between West and East at Northcote Baptist Church. Now, before you all get too excited about this story, let me give you two warnings. The following insider story is only suitable for matured audience. It contains some very rough and provocative thoughts and brutally honest openness. The second warning is that every marriage is different. And just imagine when a Western truck trying to marry an Eastern ox-driven cart, the result might not be what you've expected. And the driver of this multicultural vehicle does not have the benefit of a steering wheel. Therefore, his view is very limited by the box he's sitting there without a real mirror or side mirrors. And therefore, the mature audience will take the responsibility to discern what he said in his own context, rather than taking it as offense to your value and your belief. And I'm sure you will give him the benefit of trust that what he said is true and honest in his own context. Okay, you all heard the warning. You ready with me to go on the journey? I'll begin by taking you to do a window shopping first before taking you inside of the shop, just like all the good shoppers will do. So I'll share with you the official version of our history of change at Northcote. It all began 25 years ago as Angel did the introduction. I choose the picture of snail. You can take it whatever way you like. You can see the process of change is slow, and you are right. Or you can see this as the change of process is very prudent. Every caution has been taken. Efforts been made, so whichever way you like to take it, but that's how I see it. It begins 25 years ago when some wise and godly people at Northcote Baptist Church see the opportunity to begin a new ministry. Today we call it multicultural ministry, but at that time it's a ministry towards the Chinese student when the Australian government allowed them to stay. And what they did is English class, Bible study, and provide simultaneous translation at the Sunday service. So over the next few years, it grew wonderfully, and over 10 Chinese students were baptized in the church. But what happened next was those people, when they grow into certain numbers, they decided to form their own church and moved away from Northcote and holding the Sunday service at Northcote Church of Christ. Because of the generosity and persistent love from Northcote Baptist Church, they've been invited to use the church free of charge. So after half years, this Chinese church moved back to Northcote and to hold Sunday's afternoon service in the church. And that's been like that for next 7 years, from 94 to 2001. And the Chinese church grow and thriving and have baptized over 100 Chinese in that building, and I was one of them. So by 2001, suddenly, people say that God moved in mysterious way. And the Chinese church leadership, I was one of them, suddenly we realized we are not legally constituted, and therefore we are not covered by public liability. And out of that necessity to find insurance, we decided to become a Baptist fellowship associated with the Northcote Baptist Church, and we were graciously welcomed by a Baptist family. Yeah, that's in 2001 when we had the gathering at Diamond Valley Baptist Church. And we've solved our problem. So for the next 2 years, nothing happened until in 2003, Angel Wolf was invited to our church, and we had our first Chinese and English leadership meeting together to explore the possibility of becoming one church and different models. And we've been very prudent after that. Nothing happened for next 3 years until in 2006. Finally, the Chinese leadership decided to go ahead to make a commitment to the change. And it was in that year we made some change. The English church moved to the chapel for the first time in the over 100 years history. And we were holding our service in the morning, so to allow the English service and Chinese service to happen concurrently in the morning, 10 o'clock. So and then we start to explore a new constitution, which took us another 3 years to agree on the new constitution. Then the two churches meeting in the same place adopted the new constitution individually and using it for the next 12 months. In 2010, that United Church came into effect. And many wonderful change has happened since then. It's the first time we had this joint bread ministry. And for the first time over many decades, that the church was in the local newspaper again. And people noticed we are doing something different. And for the first time in our English church history over the last 2 decades, that we had a full-time English pastor. And for the first time, let me see, where are we? The church has seriously considered redeveloping the next door block for a 5-story community hub and worship center over 5 decades. That's the first time the church began to think about that possibility again. And as a result of that, with the help of Baptist Care, the church has established a community garden in 2013. And the total attendance for both the English service and Chinese morning service, Sunday school and evening service reached above 250. And there were 40 people baptized since the church joined together. And we had 3 ministry interns, and I was ordained 2 years ago, and Richard is a confirmed candidate for ordination. And we also have a united pastoral team. Cameron came onto the board, and that's the church, how it looked like today. Yes, you can find babies and also 90 years old and all cross different culture and race. And this is our current pastoral team. And we have the retired senior pastors. We have the next generation pastors there. So this is a wonderful story we share with everyone. And this is the story we cherish and celebrate because it is the true work of God among us. And just like in any happy marriage, that you would like to share this kind of story with everyone. And that's what I called window shopping. And now I'm ready to take you inside. Are you ready? Okay. The insider story, well, the window shopping is all about what great things we have done at Northcote. But the insider story is different from that. I'm going to share what I've noticed over the years and what the change brought into my personal life, my personal journey, and what's the link between the change and the gospel. So that's the shift of focus, right? And what I've noticed, I'll share 3 with you today, as usual I do in my sermon. First, I've noticed that conflict is a norm. A multicultural church is a recipe for conflict. I've observed over the years that to some extent, the migrant church is actually a safe haven for us to retain link with our own culture we left behind. And this is a little China in Australia that we treasure and we cuddle each other together. If it weren't for the need of insurance, we would never marry with the church. Of course, we would like to spiritualize the reasons, but that's what driven us into this marriage. With all due respect for the seniors here, I think this is true for Australian church. The church became an oasis or a museum for us to keep the wonderful childhood memory of good old days. In such a fast-changing society. And imagine these 2 churches married together. Just like any marriage, conflict is a new norm. And to realize that, acknowledge that, or even to accept and embrace that is a breakthrough for me. And takes the stress away to under the constant pressure of finding solutions to avoid or to solve conflicts. And that's the second thing I've noticed, that I need to turn my attention away from the speed of doing ministry to the space that I can create for this change to happen at its own pace, rather than to resist the conflicts or trying to stop any conflicts. Let the conflicts find a solution at its own pace. And that's what I've noticed, that once I do that, then the church will enjoy the blessings of being together. But once I fail to do that, and accident happens. When we are granted into a small place, right? Like what happened a few months ago, I had a black eye and walked into an advisory board meeting. And imagine those people say what they said to me. I try to explain to them, says, no, don't explain, we all know what happened. I'm sure you're more mature than them. What happened was, I wasn't built up by the members. It wasn't because the marriage was too hard. It was when I was trying to move things around in the garage, because I was sitting in the house and the garage was very crowded. And I hurt my eyes into something and swollen up and had a black eye. I was going to show you that photo, but I thought it was too graphic. And that was the moment for me, aha moment. Is that what you call it? Aha moment. That when the space too tight, accidents bound to happen. It's same is true for a multicultural church. When we are holding so tight to our own culture and we see things, it ought to be like this, it must be done in this way, it's all taking away the space when the tension is high, the stress is high, it's all depleting the space, which is so necessary for the change to happen at its own pace. So, space, not speed, is the second observation I made. And the third observation I made was appreciation rather than achievement. I need to learn how to appreciate unity and trust in the church rather than trying to achieve something. And that's why I turned my attention from what we've done to what I've noticed. The gospel tells me it's all about what God has done, but I need to pay attention to what he's done. I need to notice where is God in our church, what he's doing, and what he asked me to do. So it's all about appreciating what God is doing among us rather than what we've achieved over the last 5 years. So that's another observation I made. Before I close my sharing, I would like to share with you the strategy I developed, how to help myself to put that into practice. And so, therefore, I'd like to share with you the 3 spiritual practices that I've consistently doing over the last 12 months. And for me, to lead change is to be the first of being changed in the church. Because the position I am being put in that driver's seats, I'm in the spotlight. Any change in my life, in my relationship with God, is to be noticed by the whole church. And to see the wonderful fruit of Christ being in me will encourage others to come out of the little museum or little China and to embrace the change. So to lead the change for me is to be the first of being changed. And to be the agent of change for me is to be the space for change. So there's 3 spiritual practices I'm going to share with you. I think I don't need to tell you that the practice itself doesn't make you perfect. I'm not perfect, but it does help you to find balance. A balance in your life, in your ministry, in your family, and a balance in doing and being, right? So the 3 practices that I've been doing are practicing complaint-free, practicing gratitude, practicing being present. I won't have time to share with you these details because I just find I'm hopefully slow in speaking in English. I'll be much quicker sharing with you in Chinese. That will be good change. But if you put these 3 practices together, it's basically, it is the, what Brother Lawson Lawrence shared about the practicing the presence of God. It's all about that. And it's so easy for me to complain. And when I notice, when I try to be a police of catching myself making complaints, I was so amazed. At least 80% of my conversations were negative. And especially when I preach over the podium and they see an angry pastor there. And so practice complaint-free, and you can ask help from your partners to do that. And practicing gratitude. It's not about practicing gratitude is not about that something nice and wonderful happened to you, then you respond with thankful heart. That's not practicing gratitude. Practicing gratitude is that you see life as a gift. So you begin today with a gratitude, with appreciation, and to meet with any person you're going to meet today, no matter this person is how nasty or the things so bad, or the conflicts. Embrace today with acknowledgement that today is a gift from God. I just cannot earn today. That be able to open my eyes to see the wonderful world, to smell lunch, or to enjoy laughter is purely a gift. God is among these things. And instead of in the rush of achieve something, stop and appreciate. Just like at the beginning of our worship, that video clip, let us pay attention to those little things that we take as granted. And taking things as granted is one of the reasons why we complain so much. We think we deserve something. When it does not happen our way, we complain. So being present is all about being here and now. It's double meanings, right? And I just mention one example for you, right? Initially I planned to share with you about pastor's pay in a multicultural church. And that being a pastor and caught in between all three triangles, BUV's pastoral pay guidance and our English church, or the English leadership and the Chinese leadership, been putting that tension. And you see all the reasons why it should be done according to their value and their belief. And I'm the one caught in between. It's more than just a criticism that you're going to get. And the church can split, polarized and split. And it did happen in Northcote Baptist Church. So I'll leave that aside and just give you a hint. But I'd like to share my best achievement in my ministry is I regard my resignation from the church as my best achievement. Yes, I've resigned from the church, effective from next January, after finish the 5-year vision that we developed at the beginning of the United Church. But of course, for you, the Western culture people, you see this as nothing. But for me, this is my best achievement in my ministry, because I come from a Chinese culture. And I was so concerned or afraid what a storm this could cause among our Chinese members. because in all their memories, pastors can exit the church in two ways. One is you get kicked out. Another one is you're carried out in a coffin. So, to resign from the church only means bad things happened. People interpret in that way, so the stress coming up. But because I see myself the space of change, I didn't force that onto our Chinese leadership and the congregation. It took me 2 months to share with our leaders and to discern together with them, addressing their concerns, and to have their approval and support for my resignation. And then another month to share with the whole church, the Chinese congregations, meetings after meetings after meetings. If you interpret in Australian culture, this may be seen as a manipulation or the things ungracious. But see it through the Chinese culture. This, I felt, is a meaningful change I've brought to the church. And now we are ready to accept, to embrace that a pastor resign on a good term with the church. It can be something, a blessing. It can be open a new possibility for the church to have someone else to lead the church into its new life and new phase. So on that note, I thank you for your attention.